All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. My name is Matt Fisher. I'm the Senior Director for AmeriCorps at YouthBuild USA. It's good to be with you all today. And joining me and delivering some of today's presentation is Lauren Vermouth, Director of Technical Assistance at YouthBuild USA, and Brandon Keffer, Director of AmeriCorps Finance. So they'll be going over programmatic and financial aspects of the grant startup process. Our agenda is quite simple. We want to do two things. One, we want to go over next steps related to the grant startup process for 21-22, and then we're going to close out with some reminders. The reason that we're doing this is it is the beginning of a new grant cycle. We want to provide information that's relevant to this upcoming year. And we want to emphasize the importance and commitment that's needed to implementing grant requirements and our responsibilities as grant managers and administrators to do this. We do all of this grant startup stuff, all of this work, all of these what I call nuts and bolts, because essentially what we are trying to do, our main purpose is so that individuals like Sierra Walsh here at Mile High Youth Corps, who's really representative of the thousands of young people who come through your YouthBuild AmeriCorps program doors, can have a meaningful, impactful, and transformative YouthBuild AmeriCorps experience that positively impacts them for the rest of their lives. So they're doing the hard work by showing up every day and working and building their skill sets and mindsets. And we need to do our part with the administration of grant requirements. AmeriCorps is providing, once again, our network with 8.9 million, which will be made available across 64 different programs to support over 2,600 members in service to their community. This money will provide the opportunity for over 2,600 members to pledge 1 million hours of service that will address unmet community needs. The primary of which is the building and a refurbishment of affordable housing, with over 350 units of affordable housing being built over the next year. And in addition to this money that will help support these operations, AmeriCorps is also making available an additional 4.5 million in education awards that can be used by the young people at your program 7 years after their service term. That's money for post-secondary education, job training opportunities, or for paying qualified student loans. So we are excited about this work moving ahead. And if you're happy to join us for the first time, I use the following formula to explain it in the simplest of terms. The YouthBuild AmeriCorps partnership is about taking the fundamental core element of the YouthBuild model, one of them, which is service to others and the community, and turning up the volume on it. When you turn up the volume, the impact of the YouthBuild service experience is profound, not just on the member, but also on the program and community. And as a benefit, young people get to earn an education award that can be used 7 years from the completion of their term. What's important around this work is that service is integrated throughout the YouthBuild program model. It's not just an add-on, but is part and integrated through all aspects of it. And so we are excited about this next year ahead for everyone and this resource that is being made available. Now, I talk about grant years because it's important to note that this is year 3 of our 2019-22 cycle. If you've been playing along, you know that our 2019 enrollment period back in August 15th of 2019 was year 1. We are on the end of our 2020 to 21 enrollment period, which we call continuation year 2. And we are entering year 3 of our enrollment period. This is the 1-year period in time where programs are working to enroll all of their YouthBuild participants into an eligible YouthBuild AmeriCorps member slot. So we are approaching year 3. And of course, we know a lot of programs are still moving forward with 2021 grant activities, as well as reimbursements, and a few programs who are cleaning up their 1920 financial reporting responsibilities. So we want to talk about grant startup next steps that all awarded programs are responsible for implementing. Early last week, I sent a very lengthy email to each site regarding those many steps, and we're planning to review them now. A few resources that you should be aware of. We do have a landing page, which is dedicated to the 21-22 grant startup process, important dates, links to documents, etc. So that was in the email, and we'll throw that in the chat box if you're curious about that. We do have written resources. There's always a manual or a guide that will provide more additional detail. So we recommend those that are new to this work to access our guides. And I would point to one specific that's important probably to any manager overseeing this work, and that's our general policies and procedures manual that we send out as part of the grant startup process. Lastly, this is a federal resource. AmeriCorps is a federal agency, and they have specific rules and regulations that both YouthBuild USA and AmeriCorps, YouthBuild AmeriCorps subgrantees need to follow, called grant terms and conditions. This information is updated annually and features many of the rules and regs that we provide specific training on. But it's your responsibility for those who provide management and oversight of this work to be familiar with this, because when a subgrantee agreement is signed, you are also signing off on following these many grant terms and conditions, which for those of you doing this work for many years are familiar with. All right, so we've got three things that we want to cover with Grant Startup Next Steps. We're going to talk about the virtual management conference. Then I'm going to turn things over to Brandon to talk about financial opening tasks. And then Lauren's going to close out with some opening tasks on the programmatic side of things. So thing one was management conference. And we are excited because this is gearing up to probably be the second best virtual YouthBuild AmeriCorps management conference ever. I mean, let's manage expectations. Last year was probably the best. It was our first, yes, but we're looking forward to a new opportunity to present some new information to you all at this year's management conference. Our team has been working diligently to put together an agenda that will make the most sense to folks. We're going to be looking at new updates and requirements, and then lifting up a lot of the impactful work that has been happening this past year, despite all of the many obstacles that programs have been facing. During our conference space, our primary objective is for us to come together as a network to talk about our collective good work and examine our individual program pyramids of purpose. The pyramid of purpose, which was developed by Senior Portfolio Manager David Weatherly, provides a structure for sound YouthBuild AmeriCorps program implementation and examination. So at the bottom, we focus on the rules and regulations, which we would call protecting this investment. That's important for each enrolled member, as well as all financial reporting. Then we talk about and focus on programmatic design, ways that young people can earn enough service hours to achieve and get that education award. We talk about the impact that AmeriCorps service has on both the individual member, but as well as the program and community. And we look at lifting up those that are truly transformed through their YouthBuild AmeriCorps member experience. And we try to give light, and we say that what holds us all together is having a culture of service at our program. That's sort of the mortar that connects, the glue that connects it all together. So we'll be exploring our pyramid of purpose, even though we're going to be in the virtual format. Now, I do want to say last year, we probably had a few extra sessions that we're not planning to have this year. We know the NDA is 2 weeks prior to our management conference. So with that in mind, some of our directors and managers and other staff at the program will be attending that. And we decided to cut down on some of our core content, knowing that that is already going to take up a number of individuals' time. So what you should plan on is the following. If you are a new programmatic staff member at the site, or you need a refresher, we are going to be doing a pre-conference day on August 9th. This is where we're going to go over all member paperwork requirements. We have 2 75-minute sessions with a break in between. The main conference will be on August 10th and 11th. We will have 2 main sessions that are 75 minutes in length. And the first session, which will raise up member impact, programmatic impact, and talk about the state of AmeriCorps in 2021, 2022. That will be the first sessions. It will be followed by an afternoon session, which will be YouthBuild USA led, but a peer share conversation on the following topics. On Tuesday, the topic will be implementing trauma-informed practices. So we know a lot of programs have really thought about and making sure that staff are being taken care of and members are being taken care of on an ongoing basis. So we're going to lift up and turn to our audience to share some of those practices that work. That will be facilitated by YouthBuild USA, and we hope those of you can contribute or bring your questions. And on the second day, on Wednesday, we're going to be talking about facilitating an in-person hybrid YouthBuild program in 21-22. We know a lot of programs are looking forward to going to a more in-person model, but a lot of programs are recognizing the benefits that the hybrid model can present for a number of different reasons. So during these conversations, we hope to lift up and hear from you all about different things that you're considering and moving forward. By no means are these going to be like, I mean, you could do a whole like 3-day training on trauma-informed practices and hybrid model. This is just an opportunity to lift up what folks are thinking about in a structured, well-organized way. So we're really excited about that. Now, the intended audience for a conference typically is for new program staff, fiscal, and program leaders. But through this virtual format, we open it up to anyone at your YouthBuild program. So if you have staff that are, whether it's a case manager, construction staff, or coordinator interested in the AmeriCorps and these YouthBuild USA-led peer share conversations, we encourage you to invite them along. We'd love to have them to be an observer and or participant in our management conference. A couple of things you should know. We are planning to do AmeriCorps swag giveaways that will be better than last year. So come early, win often. There is a post-conference virtual reception on our first night, a way to connect with your colleagues informally. And we look forward to having our Roland T. Watkins impact moments to shine light on its stunning examples of the YouthBuild AmeriCorps partnership this past year. Registration is going to open later today. In fact, in just a few, probably 15 minutes or so, we're going to send out an email to our registration. You can forward that along to your colleagues, and we look forward to you and your colleagues joining us for our management conference. The registration will close on August 6th, and we will send reminders out via our newsletter. So that is thing one, our management conference. Really excited about this, this coming up. If you have specific questions, we're going to field all of them into the chat box, so please write them into that. And we are actually going to move on to thing two. And I believe, Brandon, you'll be moving us through this.
Sure. Thank you, Matt. So before I get into this year's fiscal action items, I wanted to direct you all to the AmeriCorps Fiscal Management Resource webpage. You can find a link in the chat box. This page provides all of the fiscal policies, templates, instructions, and video guidance for getting up and running with the reimbursement process. So any policy document that I referred to today, you can locate on that webpage. And next slide, Matt. All right, so your program's AmeriCorps budget template is now available for grant year 21-22. The budget is located in Dropbox within the grant year 21-22 folder, or you can just refer to the grant startup email that recently went out, which has a direct link to that budget's location. If this is your first time building the AmeriCorps budget, or you just need a refresher as you prepare to think about the budget, we do have a few resources available to get you started. First are the written budget instructions, which will walk you through the templates section by section. And this will walk you through more of the technical aspects of how to fill out that worksheet. You can also view the AmeriCorps budget tutorial, which provides a video overview of the budget building process, and it'll walk you through some examples of typical YouthBuild AmeriCorps expenses. And this video will also offer an overview of key compliance concerns related to the AmeriCorps budgets. And your third and most important resource is your AmeriCorps Fiscal Manager. So I encourage you to reach out to your fiscal manager if you need help or guidance as you build this year's budgets. So if you anticipate any significant changes to your budget from previous years, or just want to make sure that expenses are allowable and that you have the financial management systems to properly document expenses, we can provide some of that guidance. So budget drafts are due no later than September 30th. Once the budget is ready, you can place that right where you found it in Dropbox. You just want to notify your AmeriCorps fiscal manager once the budget is ready, and we will review, provide any necessary feedback before transforming that into your reimbursement workbook so that you can start drawing down those 21-22 funds. All right, Matt, next slide. All right, related to budgets, it's worth a reminder that a match waiver is still in effect. So match has been waived for all 3 years of the current full 3-year grant cycle. So this includes grant years 1920, 2021, and the current or the upcoming 21-22 grant year. No action is needed to utilize the waiver. You can simply under budget or remove match entirely if the program does not have the sources of match to meet the traditional 50% match requirements. So being undermatched will not be a barrier to your budget's approval. All right, next slide. And the next fiscal action item is the financial audit and written policies certification. So this is a somewhat new policy and protocol change to fiscal grant startup with the new grant year 21-22. So in prior grant years, we required a financial management survey, which had a series of questions related to the program's fiscal management of the grants. And along with that survey, programs would also submit their most recent audits and copies of all their financial management policies. This year, we are streamlining that process a bit. So our new policy for this grant year is to allow programs who have already completed the survey for this current 3-year grant cycle to fill out an abbreviated version of the financial management survey, which we refer to as the financial audit and written policy certification. So you can think of this as AmeriCorps fiscal pre-check or your fast pass for getting into the grant year. This document has 2 parts. The first addresses the program's most recent financial audits and any identified material weaknesses or corrective actions. So we will want to monitor those corrective actions as we head into the new grant year. And the second part is just a confirmation as to whether written policies have been updated at the program. So you will only need to provide written policies if you are updating documents from last year. Otherwise, you're just going to provide an audit and confirm that written policies remain the same. You can find a link to this document in the grant startup email, as well as on the Fiscal Management Resources webpage. Once this is ready, this document, along with your most recent audit, can be uploaded to the financial management folder in Dropbox no later than September 30th. Next slide. And to conclude this fiscal update, this is a reminder that your program may already have 2 active AmeriCorps grants with grant year 1920 and 2021. So this is a reminder that our expenditure period policy, which you can locate on the Fiscal Management Resource webpage. You can view the grant timeline video as well to walk through how to apply this expenditure period to your program. But this is a reminder that programs can incur staff and operational expenses starting 30 days prior to the first member enrollment up until 30 days after the final member exits for any particular AmeriCorps grant year. There are some exceptions here, one being supplies and tangible goods. Those can be purchased at any time the grant is available in anticipation of members. And there is some general flexibility with this policy. So if the AmeriCorps program is in a unique situation or if there are holdups with member enrollment, you can certainly reach out to the AmeriCorps team to see if there's an appropriate use of the funds prior to member enrollments and prior to our typical 30-day rule. So we will make some case-by-case exceptions. So please reach out to the team. And looking at our active grant years, YouthBuild USA is now in the process of closing out grant year 1920 with the final approved reimbursement request due no later than September 30th. So this means an approved reimbursement is due on that date. So you may want to submit this a bit prior to allow for some time for feedback and any necessary revisions. If the program still has members actively serving under 1920, you can still continue to incur expenses and build down the grants past the September 30th deadline. This deadline is really for programs where all 1920 members have exited and activities for that grant year have concluded. Looking at 2021 and 21-22, keep in mind the rule of thumb that money follows members. So to get a sense of how long 2021 funding will remain available, you want to know how much longer members are expected to serve under that grant year. And then keep an eye on when that final member exits the program under 2021. And then as we look at 21-22, you'll want to know when members are expected to start service, and that will determine when you can start billing staff and operational expenses under this recently opened grant year. But as I said, there's flexibility here with the spending timeline. So please reach out to your AmeriCorps fiscal manager if there are enrollment challenges or anything that would delay your traditional spending timeline. Next slide, please. I think we have some quiz questions for the group. All right, so first question, and you can use the chat box. When is my draft budget due for the new grant year? Is it A, when I get to it? B, no later than September 30th? C, August 15th? Or D, at the conference? All right, feeling very reassured. September 30th is the correct answer. So B, no later than September 30th. All right, next question, Matt. When is the financial audit and written policy certification due? Is the answer A, no later than September 30th? B, when I get to it? C, the fourth be with you? Or D, time is a flat circle? Excellent, didn't take long to get it. Okay, you're sensing a theme here. No later than September 30th is the correct answer. And final question, Matt. What is the deadline to close out grant year 2019 to 2020? Is it A, February 31st? B, when I get to it? C, when the pumpkin spice latte becomes available at Starbucks? Or D, no later than September 30th? All right, seeing a lot of D's. Matt, can you show the answer? Excellent. All right, so no later than September 30th. The pumpkin spice latte, according to Starbucks Corporate, is available September 8th. So if you submit everything by then, you're in a good place. So just know once you start seeing the pumpkin spice latte at your local Starbucks locations, you've got roughly 22 days, less than 20 days to wrap up all AmeriCorps fiscal related tasks. Next slide, please. So that concludes our fiscal update. I'll take any questions in the chat box. You can either direct it to the full group or privately message me in the chat. But I encourage you to reach out to your fiscal manager at this time if there's any bigger issues that you want to walk through. And with that, I think I turn it over to Lauren with thing 3.
Thanks, Brandon. Let's start talking about the program task list. And Matt, if you'll bring up our overview on the next slide, that'd be great. All right. So for some programs, our list is going to start with requesting service track changes. For most programs, it's going to begin with developing member position descriptions and an updated National Service Criminal History Check policy, and then culminating with the signing of the subgrantee agreement. So let's talk a little bit about that first one. So all programs have a construction track that they operate. Other programs have digital divide, community health and wellness, and other service tracks. In that email you received from Matt last week, we listed out your service tracks that you're currently approved for. If you're wanting to make any changes to that at all, please be in touch with your portfolio manager. I would think of it, it's a necessary pre-step because it'll impact the position descriptions that you ultimately submit. And we also include it in our subgrantee agreement. The process of adding a service track can take some time. So again, please be in touch as soon as possible if that's something that you're considering. So our next task applies to everyone, and that's position descriptions. We're asking all programs to submit a position description for each slot type that you have to your portfolio manager by August 3rd. And we provide templates each year. They're up on the website now. You can go to that grant startup webpage to find them, or a link directly in that email from Matt. And those templates have all the required elements that they need to have, such as position standards, qualifications, and a general description of activities. But it's ultimately up to you to make this template an accurate representation of what's happening at your program. So there'll be some red sections in there that I want to mention in advance. Be sure to update them before submitting them to your portfolio manager. So we're looking for these by August 3rd, but I think the pandemic has shown us that things can change. If we get 4 months down the road and you find that this position description is no longer an accurate representation of what young people are doing, please be in touch with your portfolio manager. We have a process to add an addendum, and we can absolutely do that to make sure that this is matching the service in the field. So in addition to position descriptions, this year we're going to be asking that you submit an updated National Service Criminal History Check policy and procedure. The reason we're asking for that now is there's been significant changes when it comes to the criminal history check policy. So effective May 1st, AmeriCorps published an updated rule. The Office of Monitoring for AmeriCorps provided a really helpful document called Recommendations for Effective NSCHC Policies and Procedures. And we've created a template in alignment with that. So they have a checklist, and we've made sure that our policy reflects all of that. So our recommendation is that you start by downloading our template and then going in and updating those red sections that you're going to find there. It's also a good opportunity as a staff team to reflect on the procedures that you're using at your site to make sure that you are ready to move forward into this new year, knowing what all those changes are and how they're going to impact you specifically at your site. So once we've got those things out of the way, we have our final step, which is executing the subgrantee agreement. And we do that through DocuSign, which is fantastic. I remember when we used to mail those back and forth to each other. Now we can complete this step within 5 minutes, honestly. But a key thing is that we have the right email address on who to send that to. Again, it was in that grant startup email. We said the name and the email address. So please take a look at that and make sure we have the right person to send it to. Once that's signed, we'll be able to allocate slots in the eGrants portal, which allows members to start their service, and it'll also allow for reimbursement of funds. So I do have one question or one thing that I want to flag. If you're a program that is planning to start members between August 15th and September 1st, please email your portfolio manager. We want to flag your subgrantee agreement and prioritize it to get it signed right away so that there isn't anything holding up a young person from starting their service here. Quick rundown again of what you can expect on the program side. If you're looking to make changes to your service tracks, email your portfolio manager. We'll work through that process with you. But for everyone else, you're going to be updating position descriptions and your NSCHC policy and procedure, sending it to your portfolio manager and getting that reviewed and approved. Once that's in place, we'll sign that subgrantee agreement, and then we'll be ready to allocate slots. We'll do some quiz questions on the program side as well. When should I submit my program's member position description? August 3rd is what we're looking for, but feel free to start sending those to your portfolio managers today, and we'll take a look. So our next quiz question. What must happen before my subgrantee agreement is sent to the program? Is it A, facilitate any service track change requests, B, verify designated signatories, or C, submit position descriptions, or all the above? I would even add a fourth one that isn't listed, also submitting your updated National Service Criminal History Check policy and procedure. So excellent, we're all on the same page. So we'll wrap up with a final quiz question. What happens after I sign that subgrantee agreement? Is it A, everyone does a happy dance, B, we get a free box of cookies, or are we allocating slots in the portal? Do you see a B there, which is great. I'm hoping that more programs are providing free cookies after the subgrantee agreement is signed. But on our side at YouthBuild USA, we will promise to allocate your slots in the portal. So that's all that I have for thing 3. So Matt, I can pass it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. So that is our 3 things regarding 21-22 grant startup next steps. We're going to close out with a few grant related reminders that all programs should be aware of, that we will also spend some time on during our upcoming management conference. And I'm going to start things off with another quiz question, which is the following. When it comes to national service criminal history checks, who needs one? A, members, B, staff in grant covered positions, C, members and staff in grant covered positions, or D, members, volunteers, and staff in grant covered positions. Who needs those NSCHCs? And the answers are coming in, and right, we were leaning towards answer number C, which is members and staff. So anyone that is in a grant covered position, that's the AmeriCorps language, that generally refers to members, as well as staff that appear in the grant budget as either a direct AmeriCorps expense or a match cost share AmeriCorps expense. That National Service Criminal History Check is required. And in fact, you would know this if you participate and complete the NSCHC online training course. It has been updated with the May 1st rule changes. At least one designated individual at each program is required to complete this on an annual basis. And we've started to receive those completion certificates from programs. Now, this course is open to all individuals who oversee or interact or manage any aspect of the NSCHC process at your program for either staff and members. And it's really recommended that all of those individuals take this annual course. So one of the things that is related to the NSCHC process is that YouthBuild USA will continue to require the use of the AmeriCorps approved vendors, TrueScreen and FieldPrint, because it mitigates risk and includes a lot of the documentation requirements that go with the NSCHC process. One of the things I've learned over the last year is that programs think, yes, the check is a 3-part process. That's true. There's an NSOPW, state, and FBI. But in fact, there's like 4 or more steps. The 4th step is you have to review this information and sign off on it and make sure that that person is eligible. So these vendors provide that opportunity to do that in the easiest of terms. Now, we do understand, and we will still make available a waiver process to programs that demonstrate significant barriers to completing this process using TrueScreen or FieldPrint. You will be able to talk to your YouthBuild AmeriCorps portfolio manager about that process, and we need to ensure that they are clear policies and procedures in place in ways to complete the process in accordance to requirements through alternative needs. Next question. What must AmeriCorps members wear every day they are serving and earning AmeriCorps time? Pants, B, a hat, the AmeriCorps logo, C, or D, the AmeriCorps logo and pants? You would let your members come without pants? Is that what people are saying? Okay, I would have chosen D, but yes, we are focusing on C, which is making sure that members are at least wearing the AmeriCorps logo. I guess pants are optional at some programs, but yes, we want to highlight the required use of the AmeriCorps logo whenever AmeriCorps members at your program are earning AmeriCorps time. So that's generally while they're conducting service. Sometimes it's in the training, working towards their high school equivalency. YouthBuild USA makes available a t-shirt and other AmeriCorps branded gear. We require programs to also make sure that they are getting YouthBuild AmeriCorps branded gear for their members. And so when photos are presented to us of members in service, we get to see that YouthBuild AmeriCorps brand, which is nationally recognized and helps further support our collective effort with transforming many, many young lives and communities across the United States. All right, my next question for the group is the following. What must happen at the beginning of an AmeriCorps member's service term? A, mental toughness, B, a singing competition, C, an AmeriCorps member orientation, or D, a reciting of the AmeriCorps pledge. What do you think the answer is? A, B, C, or D? The key to this question is an AmeriCorps member. If I said YouthBuild AmeriCorps member, we know most programs would implement a mental toughness, but we are focused on that AmeriCorps member orientation, which is essential for all AmeriCorps members to receive. Now, the AmeriCorps member orientation can be as simple as going over position description, having members understand their rights and responsibilities, getting a background to what AmeriCorps is and the benefits they receive as an AmeriCorps member. It can also include, providing or completing a service project during their mental toughness or the beginning of their YouthBuild program phase. But a member orientation is required for all AmeriCorps members. All right, so let's see what my next question is, which is, what is the name given to the procedure to resolve disputes between 2 parties? A grievance procedure. And so this is a specific policy requirement that all programs should have in place. First, on the programmatic level, should there be disputes between a community partner, a volunteer, to have a grievance procedure, a process to bring it to resolution. That includes binding arbitration. That may include a third party. But most importantly, we want to make sure our members have a process in place that can help mediate disputes at the program level. So there is a grievance procedure template within the member contract. The policies and procedures manual goes into that. And we bring that up at the start of each year because there's always one program at some point during the year where there is a dispute that happens and we have to revisit that grievance procedure process. Very, very important. Yeah, you realize you don't really need it until you need it. All right. Our next question is the following. YouthBuild AmeriCorps members don't burp. So I ask you, what do the following letters stand for? What does B stand for? What does B stand for when we say AmeriCorps members don't burp? That's business. That's right. So AmeriCorps members don't burp or do business service related activities. I'm going to explain this in a minute. What does the U stand for? Union. Yes, union organizing. What's the R? What does the R stand for when we say AmeriCorps members don't burp? Religious activities. And then P, what does the P stand for? Thank you, everyone. Politics. Politics. That's right. Awesome. Thanks for everyone for playing along. So this acronym developed by Operation Fresh Start in Madison as part of an IG investigation or audit. They wanted to train their members. I think it was super smart. They said AmeriCorps members don't burp. And it's quite simply members, don't provide activities that benefit a business or for-profit entity. AmeriCorps members don't get involved in union organizing or provide services that benefit unions. They don't get involved with religious related activities that's specific to one denomination or political activities. That's a way to look at the prohibited activities of YouthBuild AmeriCorps members and make sure that they are not doing that. Now, what these are actually alluding to in general, the AmeriCorps speak is called prohibited activities. And all of us need to be very clued into what the prohibited activities are of AmeriCorps members, and then make sure that our AmeriCorps members are not engaging in these activities as AmeriCorps members on AmeriCorps time. Now, we are individual citizens, and some of these activities you can participate in as individual citizens, but it's very important that a line is distinct and drawn, and that AmeriCorps members are not engaging them on AmeriCorps time during AmeriCorps program hours while wearing AmeriCorps logoed gear. So that's our list of prohibited activities. It's in our policies and procedures. It's in the terms and conditions. It's in the subgrantee agreement. So training needs to be provided on those prohibited activities to all individuals at your program who are responsible for implementing this work. And there needs to be systems in place to ensure that these activities never, ever happen at your program. We are coming to the end of our presentation. We covered a lot of ground. Our agenda was to talk about grant startup next steps on the program and fiscal side. We gave some key reminders regarding our responsibilities as administrators of this AmeriCorps work, looking at prohibited activities, grievance procedures, member orientations, and NSCHC requirements. That is our full agenda. And a lot of you have things that you need to do. So as a reminder, don't forget to register for our management conference. An email communication should have hit most of your inboxes. Feel free to forward that on to any of your colleagues that would benefit by attending our sessions. The financial survey and other information, remember that due date, September 30th, and the pumpkin spice latte going out on the market September 8th, a clear indicator you need to move your financial tasks forward. And then don't forget, there's many programmatic things that need to happen. We're going to focus on one of them, which is don't forget to email your portfolio manager if you need to enroll as early as August 15th. We want to ensure that you receive your subgrantee early on. We're going to flag that and get that to you. So I think that's everything. If you're listening to a recording of this webinar, by all means, please send me an email saying that you've received this information. And I think that's everything. Thank you, everyone.